What's up YouTube? G Dickens here. Today we are going to take apart a Flux. So I do not recommend doing this at all. Just for me, I had bought a machine off of eBay. Wouldn't turn on, so I decided to fuck with it, pull it apart, figure out how to kind of oil up and grease up the cam that's inside of it, and in order to do that, I'd take it apart. FK Irons does have warranties on their machines. If you aren't under warranty, I do not suggest you do this at all whatsoever. But if you're like me and you just really don't care about the warranty, or you just buy used machines and they're just not working and need maintenance and you just feel like doing it yourself instead of sending it in, then maybe this is a good video for you. But again, I hold no responsibility for your decisions to do this. If you choose to take apart your Flux and you flux it up, it's not my problem, okay? So in this video, pretty much what I'm going to be using is a set of pliers, needle nose, kind of flat at the top, not real pointed or sharp. And I'm just going to have some grease on hand just for the plunger bar. Since I'm going to have it out anyway, I might as well do it. So I got this machine off of eBay and broke it. Couldn't get the motor to turn on, so I had to take it apart. Now, I think a big assumption that everybody uses is that this like Phillips head design here on the top is what these guys use to take out the motor from the housing, which is not true. It's actually the center part here that unscrews, and it releases this motor from the inside out, right? So this is actually the top of your motor, right? And then you got your electrical connectors here that connect to the bottom of the battery. But it's super important that when you start to take this part off, that you put your battery back in, or as you're unscrewing the top of this, the motor will start to back out without this holding it in place, right? So as you can see on the very front of it, it usually says USA, but the S's I kind of riveted out a little bit for the needle noses to sit in, so I can get some leverage to unscrew it, right? So what I do is I just take my needle nose here like this, and I set it right to the inside of those little rivets that are made, and then you'll see that it's able to be unscrewed. And it's super important that you just take your time, that you don't tear up the top of it too much. So with that being said, it's going to be just a second. I'm going to start getting this to back out, because once you get it backed out, you can actually grab it with your pliers from the outsides and finish the process of unscrewing it. So it's super important that you just kind of really take your time so you don't tear it up too much, right? And once you, like I said, once you get most of this out, you're able to grab the sides of the actual front of it, and it's not much. And so now that I got enough of it out, I'm able to take the pliers here like this and grab the sides of it and start to unscrew the rest of it, right? So it's just the initial of getting it to actually show some sides so I can grab it with the pliers, right? So now that you've done this, set this piece aside, because this is extremely important. So try not to damage it too much if you're going to do this. Now you can take your battery out, because remember what I said, that this will back out and you won't be able to grab the sides of this. You're just going to keep turning and turning and turning and tearing the top up. So now I've done this, take your pinky, and the motor should pop out relatively easy. And as you can see, it does, right? So here you have the motor to an FK Irons Flux. It really is that simple to take out and take apart. Again, I'm not responsible if you guys ruin your machines. They will immediately void your warranty. So if you are in warranty, just send it back. Their customer service and the time frames that they get these machines back to you are actually very good. So if you don't have a warranty and you're just trying to get it done yourself, cool. But back to actually taking it apart. You see that they have two little pins here, right? These pins are designed to line up into the actual motor housing. So when you do put it back together, make sure these pins sit into the housing correctly, okay? Now, since I already have this machine out, I'm gonna throw some grease down in here where the plunger bar goes. This really is just exposing your plunger bar, your cam weight, and everything like that. So you can see that this flux is a 4.0. I guess if you're doing this and you have fluxes that are different cams and you want to put, you know, a different size throw on the flux, you're able to do that. Again, I don't recommend doing any of this. This is just a video where I'm just showing you guys how to take it apart, grease it, and maintenance it yourself. Because it is important that you do grease the inside of the plunger bar. If you notice your machine's noisy out or anything like that, you can figure out exactly why. But just since we're on the video anyway, I'm just going to show you guys how to put it back together. So actually, I'm just going to put a little bit of tiny grease in here anyway, since I have it out. That way it's in there anyway. So now that I'm putting this back together, you'll see the two pins here and the two pins that go right in here. It's super important that you take this like this, obviously the same way, and you make sure that the pins are going to line up. Now, I don't really like to force things at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make sure that those pins are there. So it should sit in more than that, so I'm obviously not in the correct placement. So I'm just gonna make sure it is before I push it in. There we go. So you'll always know if it's correct because your battery should fit in there again the way that you pulled it out. So if my battery can go in which it can't, so it's not lined up properly, those pins aren't sitting correctly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of jar it left and right until the pins are sitting correct. One second, I gotta grab some sort of Phillips head or something. So I didn't have a Phillips head, so what I used was just like a USB electric box, and I kind of just put it in there and was able to finagle it so it sits properly in there. Kind of just used what I had. Now the battery should go in there perfectly fine, in which it does. Now you're ready to put this part back on. It's important that you're able to get your battery on before you start to screw this back on, because you have to make sure that your motor is inside of the housing correctly. That way when you do get this part back on, you're able to hook your battery back up. You don't want to run into a no shit moment where you can't do that, because then you have to go back and redo everything, and that's never fun. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start screwing this back in most of the way with my hand. Then I'll grab just the edge before I can't grab anymore, and then that'll get me pretty much as far in as I can with it, right, which is almost completely all the way in. Now all I gotta do is those rivets that I made on the top of the actual part that holds the motor in, and now I'm tight. We are 100% completely back together. Let me grab a battery that's charged. Actually, this one's dead. It's a little bit different color, but I don't think anybody cares. So we're gonna put this battery in, and then we're going to turn it on. And there you go, your FK Irons Flux is put back together. Obviously we'll put the grip in here. There we go, it was a little chattery there with the grip being loose. Now we got the FK Irons back to going. That don't sound good. Wasn't making that noise earlier. And this is why you're able to take it apart.
Over.
My bit's too tight. I'm gonna assume I tightened it too much. I think that's a safe assumption. Things can be too tight. Now we're good. It was too tight. So I guess you can tighten it too much. So don't tighten it too much. If you start hearing it being chattery, maybe the top is too tight. And I think now I'm going to go through all my fluxes because I do have some chattery ones that I thought might have just needed a little bit of oil or a little bit of grease. And now this thing sounds literally like when it came out of the box. So maybe it tightens up over time. I don't fucking know. But it literally is purring like a brand new flux within 2 seconds of just literally loosening this up just a little bit. So I don't know, we learn something new every day, I guess. But that is how I take apart my flux. That is how I grease it. And that's G Diggins for you. And that wraps up today's videos of us taking apart and putting the fluxes back together. If you guys have any other questions, just shoot them down in the comments below. But other than that, I appreciate you guys viewing it. Just like and subscribe, and shoot some comments if you have any questions about the cams and the plunger bars and things like that. We'll be making a whole nother video with me pulling the cam off the motor, show you guys how to take the plunger bar out of the motor housing of the FK Irons Flux, and yeah, so just shoot some likes and subscribes and shoot a comment. Appreciate you.